It's a sampling opportunity, getting in front of the customer. The brands make money with us. We have our first customer, which is our customer, and our second customer is the brands. We view ourselves as the platform for brands. And like today, in a world where like Meta is so expensive, purchase order from FabFitFun of 100,000 units of a product, even if it's a smaller margin you'd make otherwise, it's still pretty meaty, especially for these small and upcoming brands and even for big brands.
It's like a meta DTC brand in a way, right?
Increasingly, we're owning and operating brands. Some of them are private label, some of them sit off platform, some of them were joint ventures. So much of our success has been predicated on just having.
What's the main driver of growth in the business now?
You kind of have to keep evolving the business, making sure that you're driving a lot of value for customers is always the biggest challenge. And there's a reason why we have survived in our space when so many have not.
If you haven't yet used Motion, the creative analytics platform used by top e-com and D2C brands like Fiori, True Classic, The Farmer's Dog, Hexclad, and hundreds more to ship winning ads, here's why you should try it out. Everyone knows that the right creative is the number one lever for success with paid ads. That's how you make money. But consistently shipping new winning creative, you're gonna need your media buyers and your creative teams on the same page. Right now, you're probably spending hours tiring away going back and forth between Google Sheets and your ad platforms and tools, and then spending even more time plugging it all into different decks for the rest of your team. In a perfect world, you could have an elegant way to combine visual assets and performance data so media buyers can save time and creative teams can get the details they need to make great ads all in one place. And that's where Motion comes in. In seconds, you can build powerful visual reports using data from your ad accounts. You can monitor your performance metrics and see your visual assets in the same platform. No need to go back and forth across multiple apps. You'll finally have media buyers and creative teams working together to create and scale your next big winner. If you're ready to learn how the best D2C and e-commerce brands use Motion to ship winning Meta, TikTok, and YouTube ads, book a demo today or start a free trial at motionapp.com/DTC. Even better, Motion offers a monthly subscription plan so you can dodge those annoying annual contracts. Get 50% off your first month when you use the link motionapp.com/DTC on sign up. Daniel, welcome to the D2C Podcast. FabFitFun is a brand I've been following for quite a while now, quite a behemoth in the subscription space. Can you give me your hero's journey that brought you to create that business?
Sure. Hero's journey is strong. I like that. So I think, it's kind of funny. It's been a wild ride, almost 14 years. I think there's just a lot of twists and turns that got us to the place that we're here. And I'd say initially, the story is kind of interesting because my entrepreneurial career started in an interesting way in the sense that, I was in law school and realized towards the end of my last year in law school that I really, really was not going to go down that path and didn't want to practice. It so happened to coincide with a time where my brother and his friend were going back to get their law degrees and MBAs and had started a digital agency that they needed someone to run. So I ended up running that with another friend out of law school and started building websites for other people. And out of that, we kind of launched FabFitFun together, initially as a newsletter and blog, and ran it for a few years as a newsletter and blog while running the agency, and didn't want to be in the client services business because client services businesses aren't that exciting or scalable in some ways, and also didn't want to be in the newsletter business because subscale media brands online at the time, still now it's like hard. Your subscale media brand, it's like hard to get ad dollars. It's hard. I mean, you run this podcast. I'm sure it's been a journey to get it to a point where you have a lot of, you're able to kind of sustain yourself on that and so on and so forth. And
it's a nerve-wracking business where every month the ground has to kind of come up to meet your feet as you go because everyone books last minute. And so it can be a challenge.
Yeah. And then getting the ad dollars, unless you have like tons of eyeballs, like unless you're Facebook or Google or, TikTok at this point, like the media dollars are all flowing there. And then, the subscale media brands, you have to, if you're building your own direct sales force and that, it's expensive. And then like if the dollars come through or not is very dependent on the macro economy. So anyway, didn't want to be in that business either, even though we had some modicum of success there. We got it to like a sizable audience. And so we decided to evolve FabFitFun from this newsletter and blog into a more of a discount retail e-commerce platform. And it started with the launch of our subscription box, which, often, I was actually at a charity event last night, and I left with like this great charity gift bag. And that was the initial impetus for kind of the first version of the subscription box was, the swag bag, right? So I left with like a swag bag with like 20 things. It might as well have been like a FabFitFun box, maybe a few more items than you'd get in a normal one, but like the same exact concept, like cool brands, new products, things you haven't tried before, like things that brands want you to try, like, some promotional things in there that are informative and so on and so forth. So that was like the sort of thing that like was an inspiration for the first FabFitFun box, was like taking this sort of swag bag concept and consumerizing it. So we launched with our first 2000 in spring of 2013 or so, or was it winter? Yeah. It's, imagine like you're starting to forget your dates now. It's just getting I'm getting old in the tooth. We sold out of our first 2000, and then it was kind of off to the races from there, then 3000, then 5000, then 7500. And then we started putting more into Facebook marketing and realized, we could actually acquire customers doing it. And lo and behold, before we knew it, opened our eyes, we're at 1 million customers and growing and so on and so forth, and raised a bunch of money. And, that's the sort of like, long story short of what FabFitFun is. Of course, in between that is so many interesting, fun stories and takes and things like that. But that was the initial kind of impetus, was like, I actually, I grew up in a family where my dad was a doctor, and he kind of went from a professional to an entrepreneur. My mom's side of the family is very entrepreneurial. And so saw that growing up, given that background with like so many doctors in my family, not just my dad, his brothers, it was like always this push towards getting like some sort of graduate professional degree. But then realizing that like, my dad was pushing us to do that. At the same time, he decided to like barely practice medicine, even though he, used his medical license to build businesses in the medical space. And so I was like, okay, I'm probably not the type of person who's going to be very happy working at a law firm, having seen what I've seen growing up, and also just my own personality, just being curious about things, learning, very business oriented, love deals, that type of thing. So I was like, how am I going to practice law? It almost seemed unfathomable. And the fact that
it's ultimately time for money. I know a lot of lawyers, and it's still like you get paid a lot for your time, but it's still, you're just billing out your time like crazy, which is not a position I'm super keen on.
Yeah, for the vast majority. Now, of course, you can do things like litigation and class action and stuff like that have a little bit more of an entrepreneurial, like you get the upside if you win, so to speak. But like it is that. But those are also, I would say, very adversarial. Like having seen, people who are lawyers and, have had great success in some cases. But yeah, you're mostly, you're not building something per se, right? It's time for money. And then the nature of the thing is like, I make a lot of women happy conceivably on a, daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. My dad was an OBGYN. He delivered babies. So like that was joyful. Then he pivoted into the clinics and like, providing care for people, like helping people. I don't want to say lawyers don't help people, but it's very stressful. It's very combative. Oftentimes,
they're helping one person, they're probably not helping the other person. They're hurting the other person involved in the tort. By definition,
there's another side, right? And so I don't know if that's always the case in like the business context. And of course, in the business world, things are highly competitive and it's a fight and there's always things happening and so on and so forth. But it feels like more value creation, and sometimes just seeing all the things that happen on the legal side. And because of the law, I feel like 60, 70, 80% of the activity there is destroying value. Like it's like, how did this, like, let's get the lawyers out of here. And I love a lot of lawyers and friends with a lot of them, but it just feels like it ends up costing more time and money and this and that. And so oftentimes it's just something that I couldn't see myself being part of in the long run.
Looking at FabFitFun now, it's like a meta D2C brand in a way, right? Because it's like you took, even back in the early days, you're probably taking a lot of like challenger brands or exciting brands that were kind of innovating in the space or were doing things a little bit different, kind of bundling them together as this like real D2C experience. I'm curious about those when you really started to accelerate the business. You mentioned anecdotes or stories from that. Do you have any stories from that period where it was just like absolutely meteoric rise that you could recall?
It's when you say meteoric, it's very hard to like. It's not like you launch an app and like you're dealing with physical goods, right? And you know you can't just like if you launch Instagram, right, and you want to scale it, everyone can sign up for Instagram, and the inventory is there. Like, hey, okay, yeah, go sign up. It costs us very little to reproduce. The marginal cost of like reproducing another app is almost zero, right? Like once I've created this thing that I've spent all this money on and it's a beautiful experience, like I could distribute it as widely as possible. With physical goods, it's not like I can just flip a switch and get more of the same product. So like even in the first box, I naturally understood that limitation, which is like we sold out of our first 2,000 boxes, and I was like within 2 days, and maybe even less. And I called all the suppliers. I said, "Can you give me more product? Can you give me more product?" They're like, "Well, first, like we weren't even paying for it at the time, so they're like, no,
Yeah.
right? So like, of course I can't." Uh, but some would, even if we wanted to pay for it, they're like, "No, that was like a promotional thing. We don't want to do it. Like we did it once. Like we'll see how it goes." Like it was just like they had done their thing, and like the others were like, as you get bigger, it takes like, oh yeah, well, if you want to order 100,000 units of something, you have to give us a 3 month to 6 month lead time, right? So it's like all these reasons why, like, I don't want to, there was that, and so that's probably not the true full answer, because there's definitely times where we felt like we caught fire, right? Like,
Was that product specific? Was that when you really nailed a great product that everyone
a lot
needed
of it
to
had to
have?
do with like products that went in the box, and then like taking that item, and there was this Gorgiana and Griffin scarf. It was a gray and pink. It was beautiful. And I think it was like the first time we took a product in the box and marketed it on Facebook, right? Because like the first time we did a box, we put an email out, said, buy the box, you get Moroccan hair oil in it, you get this other stuff. Moroccan hair oil was like a hot beauty product at the time. It was worth, you'd have to pay 50, $60 for it. And like the box was like 40 with a discount. So like you get the Moroccan hair oil and you get everything else. So it was this idea of like the spoiler or the hero product driving sales. And then we're like, okay, what if we put that and tried a hero product to put it on Facebook and started marketing it and say, sign up for FabFitFun, you get this beautiful Gorgiana Griffin scarf. And that worked. And that's the first time our Facebook ads started working, because we hadn't tried Facebook ads in earnest till then. And so that was like a light bulb moment where it's like, oh, we could get products from these, and I think it's interesting how you nailed the sort of, we're like a meta D2C brand in the sense that and it's not just D2C brands though, like we're a meta brand, right? We're a retailer in a way. And we sit on top of all these other brands and we curate them and give you access to those brands at like, we're basically democratizing access to those brands because we're giving it to them at a huge discount that you wouldn't be able to get them otherwise. And the ability to try those products for the first time, or, get your hands on things that you want, even if you tried them before, because like they were doing a promotion with that brand at that time. So there have definitely been points of time where it's like, wow, like, we're adding so many customers a day and things like that, where it feels like lightning in a bottle, but like it's a more linear path than something that's like an app that can just, you can have 10 million subscribers in one day. And like if we even had the demand for it, we couldn't fulfill it.
Or even something where you're mass producing a single product or something that catches fire, whereas you're having to manage logistics across the whole customer lifecycle with all these different products. That's kind of I'm actually just curious, when you get your first box, you get this awesome grouping of all these great things. Then when you subscribe, is it all new things every month, where you're being exposed to new products every month for the life of your subscription?
So so it's a seasonal membership, and most of our members are annual. It costs $55 a season, or $220 a year. The box itself drops 4 times a year, but throughout the season, we're refreshing the products that are going there in the sort of box curation. So when you come, it might look like a slightly different menu, and that's something we're doing more of now. And we did it sometimes in the past, and we had different mid-season drops in the past, but now we're kind of just refreshing the curation throughout the season more and more. And that's something that we think will be a direction we increasingly head into. But then as part of the membership, you also get access to sales, where we're offering the lowest price on the internet on those products. And so that's a big part of our business as well. And it's almost half our revenue are people who are not just shopping the box, but shopping things outside the box, where they're adding things to the box, or they're shopping our sales, so on and so forth. And then we, have a business where we partner with brands. Some of them we, partner or own brands. Some brands we actually own wholly. And some brands like we partner with, like one of our partner brands is actually a well-known D2C company called Our Place that, we helped incubate and get off the ground from day one. And we love them. They've been fantastic for us. And they've done some products on our platform. Another one's called Unhide, which is a blanket brand that, is like literally the coziest, comfiest blanket you'll ever feel or touch in your entire life. And then we have a kind of B2B side of our business where we do fulfillment for other brands, but we're also doing product development and sourcing and also starting to foray into some trade finance. So those are like the three kind of buckets. It's like the core retail business, which is the box and sales. And, that's the still 80, 90% of the business itself where we're spending our time, energy, making that experience great. Increasingly, we're owning an operating brand. Some of them are private label. Some of them sit off platform. Some of them were joint ventures. And then there's the sort of B2B side that's also developing.
And then now, what's the main driver of growth in the business now? Is it Meta ads?
Meta is one of the largest ones. Yeah.
Super cool. And in our pre-interview, you mentioned this is something. It's funny. I talked to a bunch of big brands this week, and they were kind of in a similar phase that you kind of articulated in our pre-interview about going from a period of hyper growth, even if it was lots of moving pieces, and then really when the dust settled after COVID and after iOS 14 and all that, when the tide went out, everyone's shifting focus from top line revenue to bottom line profit. Can you talk a little bit about that journey with FabFitFun?
I mean, we had unprecedented growth for 7 years, and then things became a little bit more challenging, around post-COVID. Like there was, everyone had this like acceleration and kind of reversion to the mean, and managing that, up and down is, when you have inventory is very, very difficult. And then also like, the normal startup stuff of like, okay, well, we hired a bunch of people to deal with a bunch of problems, but now we need to become more efficient about how we manage those things and cut costs and, operate in a kind of real lean, mean fighting machine kind of way. So it's like, managing both the sort of growth side of it and like that trajectory, which was been, I'd call it very dynamic. And then there's the sort of like, well, we have a bunch of heads to deal with these problems. And like, it's not the cheapest way to address something when you can leverage technology or systems or, know-how to do things in a more efficient way.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge scaling this business?
I mean, I think, you kind of have to keep evolving the business because like the consumer landscape's changing so quickly, and making sure that you're driving a lot of value for customers is always the biggest challenge. Like, how do you make this great for customers? At the end of the day, is the number one. And there's a reason why, we have survived in our space when so many have not. And that's because we've evolved the customer experience so much. Like even the concept of shopping or getting a FabFitFun box is a totally different thing in some ways than it was before, in the sense that, you get to customize everything now. So you're essentially picking, curated menu of like the greatest, latest picks. And when it started off as a mystery, surprise package. And if you don't want to pick, you can still not pick today. So you can still have that mystery or surprise feel to it. But, in order to scale our business, I think giving people a sense of control over the shopping experience and making it real, bona fide shopping club, is how we like to think about ourselves, where we're giving you access to these kind of like, we call like to say front of life cycle products, like products that are just like coming to market, right? It's not liquidation. It's stuff that like is the coolest, newest brands, the latest launches, and so on and so forth, and giving you to those at a discount. I think that's been a real novel innovation for us that no one has really been able to do that in the world. And that's been interesting. But, the challenge for us has always been how to innovate on that experience and make it more compelling over time.
You mentioned in the beginning the products were gifted and that you had trouble getting more because they were sort of gifted. And I guess at the size that you're at now, you're no longer a small media player. You have this huge community. So when you go into these products, are you, these it products that may be hard to get, and you're able to offer them at this like crazy discount? How do those conversations go? Is it just basically because everyone recognizes the buying power that is in your community, and so therefore you're able to sort of negotiate these great deals for these products?
I think it's a mix. Like we still get a lot of free products, but not, in smaller sizes. A lot of it's, the people recognize the value of it's a sampling opportunity, right? So like getting in front of the customer and getting the product out there, and then also, in the hands of influencers who promote it and so on and so forth. So they see that, and they are, often the brands make money with us. Like, we have our first customer, which is our customer, and our second customer is the brands. Like, we view ourselves as a platform for brands. And like today, in a world where like Meta is so expensive and you can't guarantee ROI, like purchase order from FabFitFun, of 100,000 units of a product, even if it's a smaller margin you'd make otherwise, it's still pretty meaty, especially for these small and upcoming brands. And even for big brands, it's like if you go to your CMO at a company and a CMO comes to you and says like, hey, I have a profitable marketing platform for you. From day one, like we're going to make a little bit of money, and like then there's opportunities to sell more to the customer through the various e-commerce offerings that we have as we expand our store. Also it drives conversion both in retail and on our own D2C platform because it creates awareness. Like it feels like a really nice solution.
You mentioned getting into creating your own products, and I'm curious, what was the thought process that went into which products you were going to create?
Well, initially, now it's evolving, but initially it was like literally we wanted products for the box that we couldn't buy, right? And like, we saw like, we couldn't find like a great, inexpensive, not expensive, but like reasonably made blanket, right? And like, we couldn't get it from our, third parties. Like, so we were like, okay, what if we made something that was like perfect for, the FabFitFun box? And so like that was one of the impetuses to do so. So like often it's just like we couldn't actually find the thing that we wanted. And at the right price with the right brand, the right kind of, but we knew the customer demand was there for the product. And so we would go and make that. Now, I think, there's a lot that goes into like that process, and it's something that we're working through exactly, what are the things that, both we think our customers want, but also expand the potential scope of our market because we're offering those things as a way to become even a FabFitFun member. You might be able to subscribe to something entirely different than the box eventually. To become a FabFitFun member, and that's the kind of path we're heading down, and that's why we're creating some more products.
You've got this great community of buyers. Where does that community actually live? Like, how do you conceive of this community, and how are they interacting with each other?
First, the customers live everywhere, right? But we actually have an online forum that sits behind our paywall where you can go in and see customers talking to each other, and there's all sorts of discussions, and like we get a lot of feedback. Like we just implemented a new change where as part of one of your customizations, it's a trial, we're testing whether an annual member can, if they don't like a product in a box, they could literally just swap it for cash and they can spend the cash in our store, which is like really making it even more customizable than, literally like, okay, if you don't like something in a slot, like take the credit and spend it. And like, we're getting a lot of feedback real time about that change as it's happening. And like, is it good? How are customers perceiving it? Is it, and there's all, before we launched it, we had some questions, and getting that feedback can help us go in one direction or another. But at the same time, you have to listen to community, but sometimes, there's business reasons why, like you might not do something the community wants. There might be, even just like, your understanding of the community reflects the vocal part of it reflects a certain part of the whole customer base. It's not the whole customer base. So it's like, we definitely, I think probably the most valuable part of FabFitFun is our community, but it's not, it's a data point for us that we listen to very carefully, but we also have to, use our own kind of judgment in navigating the parts of the community that we kind of take and have that, dictate the sort of decisions we make versus the ones where it's like, oh, we can't actually do the thing that they want us to do because it just would be very bad for business and torpedo us, or it doesn't reflect what, the other 80% of customers who aren't as vocal are feeling or thinking. And so you have to kind of parse that out. And it's like akin to like, Facebook would make changes and, the change newsfeed and everyone revolted. And like, but now it's like the new newsfeed's the thing that everyone likes. So, I don't think ours have been on that magnitude of reaction and things like that, but it's still it's not a dissimilar dynamic.
And most customers are probably coming to you for that curation aspect. You guys, what's cool. You're getting a lot of these great products in. So I'm sure that's a big part of it for a lot of your customers, is that you guys are kind of setting the taste.
Yeah, I think curation, I think discovery, and I think value. Like it's an amazing deal. At the end of the day, like you're getting these incredible products, highly, that you're learning about often for the first time. And then the value of it is like, you're paying $55 a season, you're getting $200, $300, $400 of value in that one box. And then you're getting access to the sales where it's like, we're guaranteeing you the lowest price on the internet. Like that's a pretty compelling offer.
Can you give me any examples of sort of the kinds of things you've done over the last couple of years to improve profitability, even if it is potentially at the cost of, crazy top line growth? Can you give me an example of like some belt tightening or some focus that you've put on the business that helped improve profitability?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think well, inflation just made things very challenging. So you had no choice, I think, if you're a consumer brand at this point to raise prices. So that's something that like we had to take on, and it was something we avoided for, I'd say, almost 10 years. We had no price increase, which is when you think about the just regular deflation, like that's a big thing to take on, and so like that was a decision that we had to make that felt like at some point like, well, we just can't, we'll make zero money if we don't raise prices given where inflation is going and the cost of goods. And then there's just like certain functions in the business where it's like, okay, do we need this many data scientists, and is it really adding up to the right ROI for us, versus investing in more merchants? And so like trade-offs there, and just like where can we leverage AI and customer service to cut some expenses and improve the sort of experience. So it's like things like that. It's like one great one actually is we were able to cut down on our hosting costs by using a third party tool called Usage AI. That really helped us a lot. So like it's been a labor of love. It ideally doesn't really ever come at the cost of the customer experience, and that's for the most part where we've tried to hold the line, where it's like we never want to compromise on the experience. But if it's like hosting bills, like that doesn't really have much to do with what a customer is experiencing. If there's a way to reduce that or reduce your legal expenditures or whatnot, I think those things are, you take those wins 10 out of 10 times.
100%. Obviously, your merchants in a lot of ways kind of are your influencers, or they're the things that can really, people can resonate with in the ads if it's a certain product, whether it's the scarf or something else that people really want. What else have you guys done with influencers? Because I imagine there's a lot like this. This kind of, the genesis of this is kind of like that celebrity gift bag thing in a way. So you're kind of like, you're in LA, you've got sort of the celebrity culture. Like what has your influencer strategy looked like?
I mean, look, I think we were one of the pioneers of influencer marketing. So, we've done so many things with influencers, but, the sort of table stakes was like the unboxing, right? That was like the first influencer campaigns for us. And that really helped propel the business and gain a lot of notoriety for us. But now, they're intertwined in a lot of different ways. Like they could be even involved in some of our product development, where we say like, hey, we want to work with this influencer, or this brand wants to work with this influencer. Like, hey, why don't you guys work together and launch a product in the box through us? That's something that's happened. I think the potential there, we're still scratching the surface on, but like, they're part of our creative now, just beyond the unboxing. And so, how do we involve them in the entire process, I think is a evolving thing, but like we're working with them all the time.
I could see that, like a celebrity curated box, right? Like the Snoop Dogg, box or something like that. Or like I could see there being an interesting aspect of celebrity curation there as well.
Right. Or like what's the box that they would pick of our menu? Like they curate the, and so like maybe they have a couple items that sit in that are from their brand, and I would choose this product and this product and this product on the FabFitFun sort of curation menu.
Very cool. What can you talk a little bit more about your marketing mix? At this point, I was talking actually just with my girlfriend before this, and she was just saying how constantly retargeted she is. So she says hi because she feels constantly retargeted. She loves the brand, but I'm just curious, what does your marketing mix look like?
It's an ever evolving thing. Like I think we used to be on a lot of platforms and went really wide. Then we pared it down to focus a little bit more on Facebook and Meta in the last few years, and now we're kind of expanding our scope back out. So, Pinterest, Snap, TikTok, like these are all part of the mix. But I still think that for most people, Meta is like the number one.
Have you experimented at all with more like true top of funnel platforms like TV or postcards or anything like that?
We've definitely done TV in the past, and it's something that we're still doing now. And it's gone up and down in terms of how much we've done, based on like the sort of market for TV at the time and, what success we were finding. I think it's something that we're looking at more and more. And I think as we open up the FabFitFun platform, right now it's just like a box subscription funnel, right? But we're going to open up the store so that people can browse it more and experience it more, where going to fabfitfun.com becomes a much more shoppable experience if you're not a member. And I think once we do that, it will open up the opportunity to do a lot more top of funnel marketing.
Super cool. I'm just picturing your retention, your segmentation strategy in the back end with your email marketing or your SMS or whatever. And you've got, you've got cohorts of people in subscriptions. You're following up with people about products that they have got that they may want to re-up with. Can you just I just imagine you've got a lot of segments going on your back end. What ESP do you use?
We're with Braze.
With Braze, cool. And can you talk a little bit about your high level? Talk about your sort of segmentation strategy on the retention side.
I mean, there's so much going into that now. So of course, and I think people think you see us and we're a big company, right? But to nail these things takes a lot of time and a lot of money, and it takes a lot of work to nail that kind of customer lifecycle segmenting and messaging to different cohorts and things like that. And so I think it's actually just work in progress. It feels still a big opportunity for us. So much of our success has been predicated on just having a thing that customers really wanted, and now really honing the operations. And then this is 10 years into the journey. I still feel there's tons of opportunity in terms of our retention strategies and our customer lifestyle segmentation and targeting with more merch. That's this campaign for this person, that campaign. It's still something that we're kind of working through. I mean, we do a ton of things. I don't want to say that we're not doing a lot there. We definitely are. But I think, with AI, the level of sophistication that you're going to be able to have around this is going to be, tenfold. So it's something that, we're working through now.
Are there any tools? You mentioned usage.ai. Are there any other tools in your tech stack that, I think there's so many interesting SaaS players that are coming to the fray right now that all are offering, incrementality. They're all offering revenue that they can prove that you wouldn't have got otherwise except through them. There's a lot of neat AI tools and stuff like that. Are there any tools that you found really, really beneficial for your biz?
I mean, I think there have been tons of tools along the way that have been very beneficial. But it's whether it's good or bad. I feel there's some stuff on the AI side with customer service that we're leveraging right now and testing different tools. I think that's definitely proving to be beneficial. But of the latest and greatest, I'd actually have to go back to the team and say what are you guys finding super impactful or influential? I'm lucky at this point, and maybe it's for better or worse, that I'm not in the weeds of the tooling and the instrumentation of our business as much as I used to be. We've built a lot of our stuff in-house. That's been an interesting journey. I think the question for us now is there are all these third-party tools, and sometimes you're just it's so much easier to pick off a third-party tool than to build something. And so, we started our e-commerce journey before those tools. Shopify wasn't that great then, and now Shopify is amazing. And so there's real questions around do you make the switch over to some of these third-party tools, and those are the things that we're kind of exploring now.
Are you familiar with Nift? They're a sponsor that's been on the podcast before. We're just about to release I just see them being a really good fit with what you're doing. They pop an offer. They have partnerships with Tinder and Uber, and so once you buy a subscription on Tinder, something pops and says, "Hey, you've now got an opportunity to get a FabFitFun box for X% or whatever." And they basically it's like a traffic network that just pops offers to people that have already bought something. I just see that being a really good fit. We had someone come on the podcast who has a wine box subscription, and they've it's become one of their biggest channels actually, which is kind of crazy. But have you heard of them?
I have not heard of Nift, but it's definitely something I will check out. And we do have a tool that pops offers from on our own platform. I can't remember the name that you're using it, but this sounds like it cycles in third-party things, and it's a widget that's distributed where I could market FabFitFun on Nift. Yeah, that's cool. And there's a lot of those sort of contextual kind of commerce plugins that have existed, and so that sounds like a newer one that is definitely worth checking out.
But yeah, it's all on a CPA too, right? So it's you just put your bid in. I'll send you the link after because I think there's maybe a good fit for you there. What about Q4? Any how does obviously it's a seasonal business because you've got the seasonal boxes. How big of a deal is Q4, Black Friday, Cyber Monday for this seasonal business?
So it used to be less of a big deal, but because we're leaning into so many of our sales and realize that people are shopping FabFitFun as they shop a lot of these other platforms, it's become bigger and bigger for us. And last year we really blew it out in Q4 with Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And I think this year we'll look to do even more. So, in a sense, we're less seasonal than most traditional e-commerce players because we have this subscription business. But it's definitely not as seasonal as other ones, but something that's important for us.
What advice do you guys came in very early and you've kind of walked this golden path. And it sounds like you've evolved the business in all these ways that you might not have been able to keep your head above water if you didn't, which is amazing. What advice do you have? And I for the longest time in the heyday of D2C, the subscription box was this like be all end all. Everybody wanted to launch a subscription box, and I think there's probably a lot that have fallen by the wayside. What advice do you have for maybe someone listening in the audience who's thinking about starting a D2C brand, maybe a subscription box?
I mean, I don't know why, like, I think there's a point in time in which like you are a first mover in a space where it like makes sense to do something, right? And like there's a white space. If I were to go back and start a business again, I don't think I would start today a subscription box, but I would look towards like what would be next. Unless there's something really novel or interesting about, your offering that, you think would differentiate it. And so like at the time we did ours, like we were one of the first to do it, but it was also very different than what was out in the market. No one was doing it across lifestyle categories, which people thought was insane. Nobody was doing full size products, and nobody was really doing it on a quarterly cadence. So like those were three things that really stood out. In terms of just like a D2C brand, I'd say the same advice. Like, the number of Shopify brands, like if you just look at that, it's like the long tail of people who have a brand. It's like so many are like small brands. So, what is going to make you rise above the noise? At the end of the day, it comes to having some sort of novel or innovative product that like stands out from the crowd, or some sort of brand IP that like really differentiates you. Or otherwise, I think, most of these things are commodities.
100%. Randomly, I just saw on your website that you taught a course on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Is that true?
I did in college. So I went to UC Berkeley, and they had this thing called Democratic Education of California. And me and my friends, we were just, senior year, we said, well, we should not go all 4 years without teaching a class together. And we decided that Curb Your Enthusiasm was the one to do it. And it was fun. And got a professor to sign off, and we had 40 students, and they all got 2 credits. And it was something that they were excited about.
What's the lesson that we can take from Curb Your Enthusiasm? Just complain all the time? What's the
Oh my God, I don't even know. I think it was just our excuse to have fun and hang out together at the time.
That's awesome.
I think my lesson is it's always good to laugh. A couple Curb episodes, just to change your set and setting or whatever it is, like step away. I think having that there is always a positive thing, or anything to kind of take you away from, your day-to-day, a show or something like that, to sound meditation or something to relax with is the meta lesson, I would say. And Curb represented that for a while for me.
I liked you reacted when I said hero's journey, the Joseph Campbell quote that every all people kind of it's a great way to kind of visualize your life. And I see on your Instagram you have find adventure where others find fear, and I feel like that's such a great moral for founders, for D2C people, is just to really like take heart in doing challenging things.
Yeah, I think you have to naturally you have to embrace the uncertainty in order to be an entrepreneur. And I don't think I fully appreciated that, because like I had, 7 to 10 years of like straight up and to the right to begin my entrepreneurial career, which was like unbelievable. But even in that, like there were a lot of ups and downs, to be fair. And then I had like, challenges in my personal life with some health challenges. And, unfortunately, I was diagnosed with cancer in the middle of like this peak of my entrepreneurial career, which is kind of wild. But thank God I'm on my 4th year of remission, then followed by some business challenges. And now we've thankfully, seemingly worked our way through a lot of those, both on the health side. Thank God I'm healthy now 4 years later, and the business is also doing great. So nothing to complain about. But like you really do have to, if you're going to choose the entrepreneurial path, and I think there's different versions of it too. There's like building like a big venture scale business and dealing with the challenges that come with that, versus sometimes building a smaller business. And I actually think there's a lot of virtue in that. And like I talked to a lot of, I used to push people towards being an entrepreneur, and I still think I lean towards pushing people towards being an entrepreneur. But now, having gone through all the crazy ups and downs and realizing how few and far between who do go down like the venture path, or the sort of going bigger path, or even like smaller path where it's like, well, like the other side of it, like if you're really smart and talented and like you're making a lot of money in like a well-situated situation working for one of these big, incredible companies, like there's a lot of virtue in that in and of itself. So there's no shame in that. And I kudos to those people who, end up in the right landing spot. Like if you ended up at Tesla early on, like, like it's different. Like you don't have the same, I think, you have to develop different skills, but it can be very rewarding if you attach yourself to the right ship. And I used to like look at that and be like, but now it's like, it seems very reasonable. It's like, there's all these incredible other ways to, have a life, and, your career is one part of a larger part of your entire life. And like, so I would never trade my entrepreneurial experiences for anything. And like, I think I'm only at the beginning of my journey. And I think, having just turned 40 and, got into this point where I would feel like I've achieved a good measure of success. Hopefully there's another 40, 50, 60 years of success ahead of me. And at the same time, I can realize that like not everything is your work and your career, and it's not for everyone. And there's a lot of ups and downs to building a business that, you can find plenty of rewards elsewhere.
I ran into a friend of mine who's a brand owner at the dog park. I didn't even know she lived in my neighborhood, and I wish I could have recorded it as a podcast. We just went and walked around, and she was explaining to me her business and how the default of like growth at all costs had been her mindset for a really long time. And she was really, I think she just found out she was pregnant actually, and was really trying to like reconcile what she wanted her business to be. And she's taking some very conscious steps she doesn't want to sell the business. She wants to keep the business, but she was taking some very conscious steps to kind of pare it down or to move off of this growth at all costs mindset and instead create a business that really worked for her lifestyle. And I feel like that's not a story you hear a lot of. And it was really kind of refreshing to hear that it's, you just doesn't have to be growth at all costs. You can build a business that works for you and supports your life.
I think there's definitely some truth in that. And I also think that growth at all costs is not really the thing that's being rewarded at this point. So like, why would you pursue it? Like, it's like when they were telling you to grow. And I have a lot of friends who, like they were in that, you have to, at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own decision-making. But like, we're in that seat and like decided to grow and spend. And then like all of a sudden the lights came on and everyone's like, oh, wow. Like, everything doesn't look as good when we, we turn the lights on and like stop growing and like save money and this, that. And it's a very difficult thing to go through. And so, it's definitely, one, like if you're doing it just because you realize that like ultimately you built a business for you, right? Like to make money, to have a life, like that's part of why you build a business, like naturally. But also it's, interesting that the risk reward profile on that has totally changed.
100%. Nice. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on the DTC podcast today. If people want to catch up with you, they want to follow your entrepreneurial journey, where do you recommend they find you?
I guess you could probably follow me on Instagram or Twitter. I think I'm at Daniel Broukhim on both. And I post, I'd say on both from time to time. So I've become more of on X more recently, I've been doing more, but historically just, my life on Instagram. So
cool. Well, great to meet you, man. And we'll stay in touch.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.